West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, October 27th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. The debate continues to rage. Libertarians, new leadership here in the state of Colorado, saying they're going to tack a different course now. Saying, you remember they signed that kind of pledge deal with Republicans saying that if the Republican that was running agreed to some of the libertarian principles, well, then they wouldn't run a candidate in the same general election, sometimes working as a spoiler, from my opinion, that prevented good Republicans from getting elected. That happened in Congressional District 8. They were able to get the Libertarian out. Gabe Evans wins, and Republicans nationally have more power as a result of it. Bottom line for me, it's always about stopping the Democrats. And you've got to come together in order to do that. Fighting to the point where Democrats get to win is bad for our state and it's bad for our country. And if you don't believe that there are spoilers, ask Hillary Clinton how she feels about Jill Stein.
I was hoping you'd get to that, my friend. I was hoping, because that's a great example. And I think that in many ways, those people that join the Green Party and also Libertarian Party are doing it to thumb their noses at the larger, more established party. Those Green Party members are there because they don't think the Dems are liberal enough. They think they're going to show
at this point. What else do you get?
But again, they're there to show the Dems that, look, we don't like you enough that we're going to go join another group. And in some ways, the Libertarians, I don't think, are motivated by as much hatred and dislike of the Republican Party, but more a disillusionment. I think it's more a disillusionment that you guys are doing too much of stuff that I don't agree with. So different motivations, but they're there, pretty much in the same numbers.
Let's go to the phone lines. Marcus Aurora. Good morning, Marcus. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. Keith. I'm glad he became a president. He's with that whatever group. I got one thing to say. I'm an independent, and we're the largest voters in the state of Colorado and a lot of states. And they always ask, are you conservative or are you Democratic? So, but I feel we've got the power. It's not the Democrat Party. It's not the Republican. And it will never be the Libertarians. But the thing I just want to say is because we have a different outlook on politics. We've been in both parties. And we look at a change. So where Keith, he's not even there. They stay in the same old rut for years. And that's about it.
Now, Marcus, I got to ask you, why not join the Republican Party? I've never understood the unaffiliates or the, quote, independents that kind of want to float around. Like, why not join a team, put on the jersey, let's go fight to stop the opposition? Why sit there and go, well, I'm going to pick a little bit of here, a little bit of there. I'm the king of my own castle.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. The Republican Party of Colorado is probably the scummiest thing I've ever seen. I remember when they went against Trump. At one time, I was a Republican, but I left. I said, that's it. I'm not happy with the state of Colorado Republicans. They never changed. They always got crappy candidates, and there's always a problem with this party. So I'd rather pick out somebody that's a moderate or a Democrat or a Republican that gives me what I want. What's in it for me? What's in it for you?
Oh, now, Marcus, got a question for you. You seem to be that example of an archetype that I would guess Keith Lobe, chairman of the Libertarian Party here in Colorado, newly elected this past weekend, you're that disaffected former Republican that the Libertarian Party is looking for. They're trying to make waves inside of Colorado that would give someone like you, a former disaffected Republican, and I could even put myself into that being a disaffected Republican, but I'm 20 plus years on, and I just fundamentally hate both parties. I'm a harder sell. You seem closer. What messages or what would you have to see from the Libertarian Party in Colorado that would be persuadable for you, not just even to vote for their candidate, but possibly even join the party? Kind of two layers to you. What do you need to hear to vote for one of their candidates, and what would you need to hear from them in order to become a libertarian, just personally?
Yeah. Billy, I've never saw one candidate that they ran that I would agree with. I'm being honest here.
That's cool.
And the second thing is that they just don't have no pull. They have no pull. And they're always changing. They're into stuff that I'm not into. You know, it's like it might be a generational thing, you know, Billy.
Yeah.
And so that's why I look at it. But they're always whatever you want, they're going to give it to you. And that's what bothers me about them. They don't promise you anything.
The challenge that I've always had with them is they mix up liberty and license, right? So some people look at freedom and they go, freedom? Machine guns, marijuana, let's all buy heroin out of vending machines, that type of thing. I go, that's not freedom. That's license. Liberty is the freedom to be able to live according to strong moral values, but you can't have a nation without strong moral values. So that's where they lose me. I think they mix those
Jeff,
two up.
That is exactly where I was hoping you were going to go on this one. And to follow up on this, Marcus, I think that's where practically libertarians lose many voters in Colorado. And this is a personal opinion, but it's the idea, and I was talking with Suzanne on the text messages, exactly what Jeff was talking about, license and liberty. The idea that approaching it and saying, well, universally, all drugs should be treated this way, regardless of impact. Universally, all firearms should be treated this way, regardless of impact. And we could even make it much more applicable to the listeners of the Jeff and Bill show this morning. And I would say these cars should be treated the way universally, regardless of impact. And what I mean by that is, do we want to teach a 16-year-old on a four-banger that can top out about 125 miles an hour, or something that has a twin-turbo V12 that goes 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds? Where do we want to teach and have that person learn, and where do we want? We can't say that the ability to pilot each automobile is the same. We can't say the skill level is the same, nor are we requiring the same of each driver. So what we ask of the individual driving that car in both circumstances is going to be vastly different. So what we require of people universally that may or may not in the libertarian world, using a long schedule of drugs or getting access to a long schedule of firearms, I think that fundamentally any individual human looks at that and goes, those aren't necessarily the same, so maybe we shouldn't treat them as the same. Your thoughts, Marcus?
I agree with you, Billy. When you look at things sometimes, there's got to be something. You could promise anybody, like what you just said, if they kill themselves, that was their choice. That's a libertarian's approach to things. But they had the freedom to do that. See what I'm saying? And it's they got this. It's not just universal, it's a global thought. And where they come up with this, I don't understand. But they're just totally different people. They live in a different world. They got some good things to talk about, but
Marcus, great
I can't
call.
explain it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Marcus from
Marcus. Nice to hear
Aurora,
from
his
you.
line will be open if you want to join the conversation. Give us a call at 303-696-1971. Now, Bill, there is one libertarian that I do like.
Yes.
His name's John Stossel, and we'll get to him here in a second.
All right.
But he has an interesting rebuttal to this idea that I saw featured very prominently in the Wall Street Journal. The economy That's great for parents, lousy for their grown-up kids. Many older Americans are financially comfortable, but they worry their adult children won't achieve the same kind of economic stability. As the Wall Street Journal write in their analysis, John Stossel is a fascinating rebuttal that we'll get into after news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good Monday morning. 41 and partly cloudy, foggy up north. Expecting a high of 68 today with sunshine. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, DJT landed in Japan this morning where he met with leaders and will again later in the day. Japan's not messing around. Peter Ducey on Fox this morning.
Here in Japan, you see this video of the president and the emperor. The press pool capturing the close-up images of this handshake were warned by the hosts that if they shout questions or shout anything in the presence of the emperor, it is considered here assault.
Yeah, hey, it's a different culture. Later this week, 47 set to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The U.S. Pacific Fleet says 2 separate crashes involving U.S. Navy aircraft happened about 30 minutes apart during a routine operations over the South China Sea. A Seahawk helicopter and an F/A-18 Super Hornet fighter jet went down into the waters, and all 5 crew members were rescued in stable condition. That's a miracle to me. AOC is not a miracle. Here she is last night.
Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country,
Wow. She forgot to mention her biggest supporters, Democratic white ladies. She was at the Commie Mom Donnie, right? She just leaves them out. What about that? Democratic
She doesn't need
white
to,
ladies.
Man. That white guilt is so
true.
thick and strong. You don't need to.
Right?
No,
that's a great point. Absolutely. Boy, that is so true. All right, let's grow the government even bigger, tax you even more than they tax you in New York, and take away even more of your freedoms in New York. That is awesome. The Schumer shutdown enters day 27. The country's largest federal workers union just demanded that Schumer and Democrats reopen the government by passing the Republican Clean CR. They represent nearly 1 million workers, and there will be tons of reports like this one today.
This morning, more than 40 million people, that's roughly 1 in every 8 Americans, are bracing to see their food assistance run out later this week, creating a food crisis some experts say could be the worst since the Great Depression, all because of the government shutdown. The U.S. Agriculture Department, which administers the SNAP or Food Snap program, announcing, quote, the well has run dry.
Everyone's worried that, they're not going to be able to feed their families.
All right, stay tuned. Could be a big week here coming up. It will be. The Broncos jumped out to an early lead Sunday against the Cowboys at Mile High.
Bo Nix is that wide receiver. Look at this. They hand it back to Harvey.
Okay, they snapped it back to Harvey. I think Jim Nance is way too high up there in the press box and couldn't see it. They just snapped it to him. Look at the monitors. That's a good idea when you're up that high at Mile High. 44-24 final. Bo Nix, 19 of 29, 247 yards, 4 TDs, 1 interception. Broncos' 5th straight victory. J.K. Dobbins, 111 yards. Rookie tailback R.J. Harvey, 46 yards, 2 TDs. Troy Franklin, 6 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 TDs.
Nix down the field, end zone bound. Oh, what a catch! That's Bryant, the rookie, with his first NFL touchdown, and it's a memorable one if it holds up.
That was a gorgeous throw and catch. Broncos now 6-2. They'll watch the Commanders and the Chiefs tonight closely.
You just owe it to the team. You can't go in a shell the rest of the game. That's not going to do anybody any good, including myself. Definitely was, not happy about it. But what can I do? Go back and change it. Got to move forward. Can only change the future and go make plays, in front of me, and that's what we did.
Quarterback Bo Nix looking good. Keystone is the first North American ski resort to open for business this season. The Summit County Resort opened for a few hours on Saturday to beat Arapahoe Basin, which officially opened Sunday.
When I get on that chair, I just get so giddy.
It's a whole release of just love and joy. I'm so happy to be skiing.
We've been dreaming about this day for months. It's been a dream come true.
All right. Great to hear it. The Devils beat the Avalanche 4-3 last night. World Series heads to L.A. tonight, tied at 1. Dodgers play host to the Blue Jays. Game 3 at Chavez Ravine. Over the weekend, Utah destroys CU 53-7. They are 3-5. Wyoming takes the bronze boot from CSU and Laramie, and UC Davis over UNC. 38 in Lone Tree, 39 in Broomfield, 41 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
A Pacific front will be pushing its way through Colorado today, bringing some cooler, unsettled weather. We'll still make it into the 60s today, but turning cooler this afternoon with gusty west-northwest winds developing, and late this afternoon and evening may have a few showers. Colder tonight, a low near 30 with a brisk and a chilly north wind. It'll be a cool day Tuesday. Highs only upper 40s and lower 50s. Freezing temperatures, low to mid-20s Tuesday night. Sunny Wednesday and Thursday, highs back to the mid to upper 50s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us now is Joe Johnson. He's the campaigns director for the Libertarian Party of Colorado. Calling in. Joe, thank you for taking the time, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I just wanted to call in. I wanted to ask a couple questions and see if Keith would respond to them. The comment earlier about the difference between liberty and license concerning drug use, etc. Question that I have is, don't we believe the nation was founded on liberty, and the government is responsible to the citizens? So shouldn't it be beholden upon Congress to follow the Constitution? In other words, in order to make alcohol illegal, we changed the Constitution. We never did that with drugs. So we never gave Congress the authorization to tell a person what he may or may not ingest, inject, or inhale into his own body. So if you believe that the government should be able to restrict our liberties that way, shouldn't we force Congress to follow the law?
Got a question for you, Joe. I have a question for you. On that, when you're talking about the Constitution and prohibition, prior to prohibition, what inside the Constitution gave alcohol the legality to be sold? Just in general.
Well, I mean, just pure liberty, you're allowed to do whatever the heck you want. And so then they amended the Constitution to make alcohol illegal.
That's not necessarily true, because there were all sorts of laws that came over from England as far as common law. We had a whole bunch of laws that were in place and then were continued afterwards. We didn't start with a brand new list. Once the Constitution, we carried a lot of things forward based on our jurisprudence.
Well, so answer that, because I wanted to hear Keith's response on this. But so answer me this: then why did they feel that they needed to amend the Constitution to allow Congress to outlaw alcohol use?
Because they were trying to change societal behavior.
So then you recognize, as I do, that they realized the Constitution did not give them that authority. The Constitution is one of enumerated rights, meaning that if it's not in the Constitution, they don't have it.
I would disagree with you on that one. It's not. I don't believe that it was changed because they felt they didn't have the rights. I believe they changed it because it just flat out didn't work. That's it. It didn't stop. Prohibition didn't work per se. It didn't stop the consumption of alcohol. It increased criminality, etc.
No, correct.
So it didn't necessarily work based on what they were looking for as far as society. Yes, but I would submit that so far prohibitions on harder drugs have worked. They have functionally worked very well. But yeah.
No, I apologize. I must not be being clear here. What I'm saying is that the Constitution is one of enumerated rights, meaning that the government does not have the authority at all unless we give it to them. And so they did not have the authority to tell people that they can't drink alcohol, so they amended the Constitution so as to give the authority to the government to outlaw alcohol. It was, as with all prohibition, including drugs, abysmal failure, all the crime, etc. So they you, as you're right. So then they amended the Constitution again to repeal that. Do not then believe, and again, I'd like to hear Keith discuss this, but do you not believe then that if we want to outlaw, if we as a society decide that we agree that we should restrict a human's ability to choose what he puts into his own body, that we have to amend the Constitution to do that? Because I believe personally that the government should have to follow the law like the rest of us. None of us swear an oath to uphold the laws, but if we break the law, we go to jail. But Congress swears to uphold the Constitution, and they break the Constitution on a daily basis, and they continue on. I would really like to hear both your response and Keith's.
Yeah, Joe, I wish Keith joined us last hour, so I apologize if there was any confusion. He's no longer with us.
I'm sorry.
So, I apologize for that. So I guess the clarification question I have for you is if you wanted Congress, so from your perspective, like the FDA, everything around the FDA and their role is currently unconstitutional.
Correct. And again, if we as a society agree that we should have that, then shouldn't we change the law, the supreme law of the land, Constitution, to give the government the authority to make those things illegal?
Has that been challenged in court?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah,
most of the time when they challenge these types of things, they use the Interstate Commerce Clause, which is total bunk, in my opinion. They wrap everything under interstate commerce. They should just remove that from the Constitution, because if you want to make it illegal for somebody to do drugs, I mean, a person, pure liberty is you get to choose what you want to do with yourself, as long as you're not violating somebody else's rights. But if we say, okay, no, you're not allowed to do that, shouldn't we make that the law before we go?
Oh, it's an interesting procedural point. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Joe, and weren't there laws concerning the consumption of alcohol, sales, and things like that prior to Prohibition?
And to be honest with you, I don't know the answer.
The answer to that would be yes. The answer is
okay.
yes. Historically, the answer is yes. So the government had already enacted rules and regulations about the sale and consumption of alcohol prior to Prohibition. So you seem to come at it from the example that it was just freeform. Everybody could have all the alcohol they wanted, wherever they wanted, for as much as they wanted prior to Prohibition, and then it was changed. That's simply not true.
Fair enough. I would argue that those laws are unconstitutional because the Constitution is enumerated rights, and so unless it's written in the Constitution, the government does not have that authority. So again, if we want to make something illegal, amend the Constitution, give the government the authority, and then do it. That's where I was coming from.
All right, Joe, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Joe from Aurora, his line's open, 303-696-1971. My debates with libertarians always end up at vending machines with heroin in them.
Well,
it's just...
the idea for me is that if he believes, and the where I get into it, and it's a longer, difficult conversation, is if the idea is that the only way in which we need to change the law, and I'm using that in air quotes, is to amend the Constitution, I would disagree. One, based on how the Constitution is written. Yeah. Two, based on the process and procedure. If it was supposed to be that onerous and difficult, I don't think that's how the process would be set up. The process that was made difficult inside of the amending the Constitution was because it should take time, debate, and deliberation, where there are other abilities inside the Constitution for Congress to make laws. So that's the part that they come back to the idea that you have to make it. And then how many amendments to the Constitution do we want? At this point, we'd be on amendment like 375. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Bill.
That would be a difficult one. And just wait until you get all Democrats in the Constitution and they do the thing that Donald Trump's been threatening and make us all transgender. You know, that's going to be great. So again,
we do have a text message coming in that says the Constitution is not a list of enumerated rights. Article 1 through 6 exist to provide structure and authority for the government to act. The succeeding 10 amendments recognize the existence of individual liberties, specifically enumerated liberties the government cannot infringe upon. So it's not just a list of all enumerated rights.
Yeah, not at all. So.
Constitutional scholars texting in, which we appreciate because Bill and I just manage buttons and speak into a microphone.
Exactly.
We need the pros.
Stuff.
We need the pros. So I saw this article in the Wall Street Journal, and Bill, this is something that you and I have been debating back and forth a lot. How lousy is it right now for the recently graduated to get jobs, try to buy a home, get into the workplace? And they have this long piece in the Wall Street Journal about basically that dynamic between parents that graduated, got jobs, went out there, and kids nowadays graduating from college, unable to get jobs, can't afford an apartment, living at home. And is this a nationwide challenge? Well, I'm sympathetic to what these families are going through because I just know how hard it is right now as a young person to try to make it all work, right? Oftentimes, many people my age are working 2 or 3 jobs just to try to maintain our standard of living and to compete. And there's a few things that stood out to me about this article. The title is "The Economy That's Great for Parents, Lousy for Their Grown-Up Kids." I listened to it with my kids. We were driving around and we were listening to it on the radio. And a number of these people have applied to like 300 jobs and not gotten any callbacks. They talk about being ghosted while trying to submit their resumes. And I turn to my kids and I go, what's the thing that stands out in this article and listening? And they kind of picked up on it, but it definitely jumped out at me, is that they're just sitting there kind of applying through LinkedIn for jobs. I have never gotten a job that way. I don't know if you have. Almost every job I've had is the result of a personal relationship I had with somebody.
I think, and that, to me, fundamentally shows the job search is broken. Because again, when we were growing up and when our parents were growing up, it was the send out a resume, get et cetera. And right now, you have touched on something that is absolutely correct based on my experience, personal experience, and what I would say is larger than just anecdotal, because I have got a large swath of individuals that I have talked to over the previous 15 years, that it is transformed from a resume dump into a personal relationship. If you do not know somebody on the inside of that company, you will never get to step 2, ever. And I think that's a problem in our job search at this point, because what that means is your natural job search when you come out of university or you come out of a trade school or even if you come out of high school, your job search is now naturally constrained, not based on your ability or education, based on your relationships. That's it. Your job search can go only as far as.
See, in my mind, I thought that was always how it was done. Like, you had to go meet people. You went to the Chamber of Commerce events. You went to networking events. It's kind of like why I think people are giving up on dating apps, too, in part because it just doesn't work through a screen. You got to know people. You got to be directly connected with people. And so that was something that jumped out at me. But I also have come across this video from John Stossel. And John takes on directly this notion that it's worse today for this generation than it was for previous generations. To make money, to save, to be able to afford, you need dual incomes, all that stuff. Stossel takes this head on because this is something you hear from both the right and the left, that it's worse today than it's ever been. Really? Really? Here's Stossel, and this is a little bit of a longer piece. But I feel like he does a great job taking on each one of these, and I want to hear your thoughts.
Have you heard how young people suffer today?
I scream at the top of my lungs.
Social media is filled with videos that say,
younger generations are finding it harder and harder to get reliable jobs, afford comfortable homes, start a family.
We baby boomers had things so much easier.
Your father could somehow afford a house, a car, and also put multiple kids through college.
And now it's damn near impossible for normal people to get ahead financially or even own a home.
This meme gets millions of views. Once upon a time, meaning when I was a kid, a family could own a home, a car, and send their kids to college, all on one income. This meme is all over the internet. People believe it.
And that's really a fantasy?
Economist Norbert Michel. It's not true.
No, it seems really great to think that everything was so awesome back then, but it wasn't. Materially, we are so much better off now than we were in the 60s and 70s.
Well, young people get clicks asking, what's the point of working?
You can't even live in a house. Most people don't live in houses because it's too expensive.
That's just a factual mistake.
Census data show more Americans own homes today than did when I was a kid.
People are still buying homes, but it is far more expensive for them to be buying homes.
Progressives like Columbia professor Jeremy Ney here giving a TED talk about how inequality is a matter of life and death say the meme is right on.
This is correct.
That is correct.
But it's misleading. Houses are more expensive today, but they're bigger and nicer.
The homes that we're buying now are not the homes that people were buying in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
4-bed, 3-bath with a 2-car garage.
We have bigger homes, better equipped homes.
Modern homes are much bigger than homes were when I was a kid. They're twice as likely to have central air, dishwashers, garbage disposals. Almost all homes now have washers and dryers. They didn't used to. The popular meme doesn't mention that. Homes were cheaper then because they're what people today call lousy homes.
The costs are still 10, 20 times higher.
No, they're not. Not if you adjust for inflation. Plus,
we spend a smaller share of our income on food, clothing, and housing than we did.
Here's the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Americans now spend less of our money on food, clothing, and shelter.
We have a lot more things, and we don't have to work as hard to get them.
When I was a kid, few people lived like people do now.
Now it's the norm to go out for lunch. It's the norm to go out for dinner or to order in or to get Uber Eats.
My family never went out to eat.
People didn't have enough money.
Also, back then, families didn't fly places for vacation because flying costs so much more. Adjusted for inflation, a cross-country flight cost more than $1,000. Now it's about $300.
People did not just go on vacation. People did not fly all across the country.
But TikTokers say we young people have it so much tougher.
Hard work is not enough to make it anymore.
The game changed on the younger generation, right? Hard work alone is not enough because the deck is stacked against so many folks.
The idea that nobody had to work hard, that everybody had job security, whereas opposed to now nobody does, is absolutely ridiculous. My dad would have laughed at that, and he should have. Income is definitely higher. Jobs are more plentiful. Opportunities are more plentiful.
The job offer in under 30 minutes.
Unemployment today is half what it was when I was a young reporter.
I got a college degree.
Back to that meme, which says, a family then could afford to send their kids to college. Well, college was much cheaper then. But even so,
most people didn't go to college. Roughly half of the labor force didn't even finish high school. That's unheard of nowadays.
Finally, yes, a family could own a car, but it was nothing like today's cars.
American cars were so absolutely and unutterably awful.
They rusted quickly, and now cars last more than twice as long. Ney tweets that jobs that once provided high school grads with middle-class stability now offer poverty wages. But overall, Gen Z does better. The Economist points out that Gen Z incomes are 50% higher than what we baby boomers earned. Still, this woman gets hundreds of thousands of likes saying,
Gen Z is the first generation where they're same age as their parents. They're making less money, not more.
No, they aren't. And it's not just progressives who spout these myths.
Families in the old days, they saved money.
We don't have a great country anymore.
We're going to go back to the old days.
Why do people put out this misinformation?
politically, it sells. And it makes it really easy for a politician to say, I'm going to fix it. We always have a tendency to believe in the things that are wrong and that are bad. And that's unfortunate because overall, most people have been doing much, much better.
To counter the misinformation, Stossel TV created a more accurate beam. Once upon a time, a family who never ate out could afford a smaller home, a car that didn't last long, and they didn't send their kids to college, all on one income.
So, Bill, what do you think? Who's right in this? Is it tougher for younger generations than it used to be, or we just have higher expectations?
Yeah, it's tougher. Some of his numbers he plays a little loose and forgets things in some of it. And his home ownership numbers are a touch skewed. His how much it costs as far as cost of living is somewhat skewed. Smaller homes does actually prove the point about the problem with housing affordability. The idea that now we are building the larger homes, that's been the argument for more than a decade. That, especially in here in Colorado, part of it because of some of the rules and regulations we've put in based on holding the home builder liable, that it then increases profit margins to build the mid-level and higher-level homes. The profit margin plus liability exposure doesn't make any sense at the lower income levels. We've seen in some ways that across the country and around the world. The U.S. isn't the only country to be dealing with a housing crisis that is happening in Europe. It's happening in Asia. It's a lot of different places of which we don't control or have influence on the economy. And part of that is because the incentive has been to build the larger 2,000 plus square footage homes, not the smaller homes, because you weren't making as much money on it, nor was it as profitable. So part of that is also a function of the market. So I understand where Stossel's coming from, but some of his numbers, a little. He's not telling, in my mind, the entire story behind what's going on.
Would love to hear from you and your experience. Are things tougher for younger people today than they were in the past, or is it we're just expecting to live higher than what we bring in, above our means? Would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's talk Dan Caplis. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com, 303-770-5551, or dancaplis.law.com. Coming after a big victory, Dan Caplis getting $200 million for a family that had lost their daughter in a theme park injury. He is getting justice and making Colorado safer for all of us. All right, we'll continue. Phone lines are hot. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Big article in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. The economy that's great for parents, lousy for their grown-up kids. Many older Americans are financially comfortable, but they worry their adult children won't achieve the same kind of economic stability. John Stossel out with a video that said, no, the problem isn't the economy. It's that our standard of living is too high. You want a home that's bigger than starter homes that people had in the 50s. You want more vacations. You eat out more. You're spending more money out. So reduce your spending and you'll actually be able to live within your means. What do you think? Let's go to the phone lines. Ben in Morrison. Good morning, Ben. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. What's on your mind?
John Stossel is a doofus. Oh, my God.
In what way?
What a
Tell me what he was wrong
bonehead.
about.
All right, let's go over first. We can go over home prices. He's saying that, well, it's because they didn't have central air or washers or dryers or whatever. The median home price in 1960 was $11,900. If you want to adjust that for inflation, that comes out to about $130,000 today. So let's say you're looking for a basic home somewhere around Denver. What do you think you can find for $130,000?
Yeah, nothing.
Like a porta potty on a piece of land. Like there's nothing out there that exists like that. So when I hear people say, well, I bought my own home and did all this, and I do own my own home and did buy it and did everything, but if I could find something for $130,000, I would be buying multiple homes. And like, these are investment properties that I can make tons of money on. He's talking about college. Average cost of college tuition back in 1960 was $1,250 a year per year. The average now, if you adjust that for inflation, that's $13,700. The average cost now is closer to $27,000 per year. So it's not relative. I mean, every generation deals with issues that come through. Like in the 80s, when my parents were buying their first home, they were dealing with massive inflation rates, like in the early 80s, where
and interest rates were huge.
Sorry, not inflation, but interest rates.
Interest rates were enormous back then. Yeah.
Yeah, they were getting like 13% interest rates, but also they were able to refinance and kind of get out of that stuff too. Home prices weren't nearly as extravagant. When I graduated college, that was kind of after the Great Recession and the late 2000s, and our issue was we were dealing with big unemployment numbers. When I got out of college, unemployment was hitting 9, 8, 9, 10%, and we were just having a hard time finding jobs. So a lot of people went underemployed and just did stuff to make means. And I think what the generation now is going through is that there's just this cost prohibitive aspect where they can't really purchase a home on a single income, because like you're looking at starter homes, like little condos, apartments, and they're $400,000, $500,000 for a lot of the stuff here in Denver. And if you need a 20% down payment, you don't have that kind of money when you're that young, unless like you have some family support. Like nobody has that money saved up.
Ben, what do you make of the fact that in some capacities it's more difficult to get things like a home, go to college? In other capacities, it's a lot easier. He talks about air travel. When we were growing up, I think we had one TV in our house. Now pretty much every room has a television. Computers were very expensive. Computers are now cheaper. So what do you make of the fact that some of the commodities have gotten a lot cheaper while others have gotten more expensive?
Well, I think that's the nickel and dime out of the big budget picture. So you're looking at something that's a small margin where you're dealing with 3 to 5% maybe of your budget, but the big ticket items are way more expensive. So healthcare, way more expensive. Home prices, way more expensive. College education, savings, retirement, way more expensive than they used to be.
Ben, really appreciate the perspective. He came with receipts.
Yeah.
Ben,
Thanks, Ben.
from Morrison, his line will be open,
And
303-696-1971.
And I think what Ben is talking about is some of the push and pull inside of the economy. If you think about it right now, the cell phone you have in your pocket, the TV screen you have on your wall, the computer you have, either laptop or desktop in your home or you carry around, appreciably, a very, very wealthy person can't buy one that does a heck of a lot more than what yours does. There are some examples of some, really incredible high-end stuff, but the average rich person, and I'm talking even billionaire, what they're purchasing as far as laptop, cell phone, television isn't necessarily that much better than what yours is.
That's right.
However, their ability to purchase is what has gotten outsized versus the average person. The number of televisions, the number of cars, the number of cell phones, that has gotten. So that separation, I think, has happened inside of our economy. So while we can afford things that are closer, in some ways, the disposable side of things that are closer to those that are rich, the actual affordability of things, I think, has been diverging. But that's personal.
And when you look at what we just laid out, you have government influence at higher levels, from my perspective, with housing, college, healthcare, that has driven up those costs, artificially inflated those costs. And that's something to consider. Where you have the free market able to operate, things get better, cheaper, and you have more options. When you have government intrusion, things get more expensive, less efficient. Something to keep in mind as well. All right, we'll get to the phone lines. We're up against a break. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Is it tougher on the new generation than it was on previous generations to buy a home, make it in this economy, find a job? Text messages really hot on this one. Tell me that the kids coming out of college today are better educated than they were 50 years ago. That was one of the things I noticed in the article, Bill, was that the dad had a PhD in chemistry and worked for a major chemical company. The daughter was trying to get a job in social media management. Might be a little bit of a difference there. Let's go to the phone lines. Lynn, Denver. Good morning, Lynn. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning. I think that somebody's trying to fool all of us. I'm a leading edge of the baby boomers. I lived in a 2,500 plus square foot home, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. I spent 4 or 6 years at 8 weeks of overnight camp. College was $6,000 a year. My parents sent both of us to college. I bought my first car through babysitting money. It was $2,900. It was a Pontiac Firebird 400 Ram Air. My husband and I got married in 1969. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment with a garage for $130 a month. We earned $100 a week. Your home price, you're supposed to pay 1/4 of your income for homes. Now it's 1/2 of your income. We ate well. We went out to restaurants. We went on vacations. The day after my wedding, my parents left for a trip to Europe. There's no way that I am living as well as my parents or my grandparents. My parents bought a new car every year. My mother drove the new car. My father drove the year-old car. Everything was paid for in cash. They had no debt. And my father was a TV repairman. So you tell me. I'm now living in a 700 square foot condominium and at 79 years old, barely making it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Lynn, that's a heck of an argument right
Yeah, and I think what we're looking at, and I think where you hit the nail on the head, is the percentages, and I think that's where Stossel got it wrong. He talked about percentage of home ownership, but he didn't talk about how many of those are owned by owner-occupied. Someone like Robert Kiyosaki owns 43 houses. Is he counted in that survey one time, or does he count 43 times as a homeowner? And when Stossel talked about spending your money on things like housing and those things, what he left out was healthcare spending. And the percentage of income everybody has paid since the mid-'70s to now, the percentage of their income they paid on healthcare has doubled. And
but
so
guys,
that sucks a lot
to,
off of
to Doug's point, texted
situation.
in, don't we have more government interference in our economy than any point before? I mean, we have more laws, more minimum wage requirements, all that, and everything's getting worse.
Does he mean that interference? I mean, that's a question I have. Do we need no child labor laws? Is that what we need?
Well, it seems like it's gotten more interference and things have gotten worse. All right, you're listening to Jeff and Bill.
KNUS.